Hey, party people. So, there are going to be instances where your competitor will tell you that they already work with a competitor. And it's a pretty common objection because when you're emailing somebody, you don't always know who they're working with. So, here's what we're going to do to reframe the situation so that you can get that conversation even if they work with a competitor. Okay, so competitor response email. Typically, when somebody is already working with a competitor, this is what they're going to say. Thanks, but we're already working with a competitor. And from there, here's what you're going to respond back with. So, I'm going to introduce you to something called the reframing strategy. And with the reframing strategy, what you're doing is you're positioning your offering as complementary to their existing solution or uniquely different. So this is very important because you're not saying you're directly competing against a competitor and that you're trying to replace them. You're saying you're positioning yourself as something that helps them and adds on to their existing product or service. And so the important thing is you don't want to say yours is better because that's what most typical salespeople do. You want to say like, oh, I totally understand where you're coming from, but here's why our product might be able to help you out and help you out in a different way or a very unique way. So the key variables on the reframe strategy is the first, you want to acknowledge the competitor and the value that they offer. You don't want to discredit anybody because that's a low move. You want to acknowledge it. Number two is you want to position your product or service in a way where it doesn't directly compete against your competitor. Again, complement your competitor or frame your product as something entirely different, right? So you never want to compete head to head or else that's just a race to the bottom and it really leads nowhere. So here's a pretty good example that I found online. And so Josh from Manticore Technologies emailing Matt and trying to sell him something. And so the follow-up email that Josh sends is, "Hi Matt, I'm sending you a quick note following up on a couple attempts to reconnect with you. I would love the opportunity to speak with you about your marketing automation initiatives. I also wanted to send you an article I came across talking about the impact of nurturing leads." And he sends a link. "Please let me know when you are available." So it's a decent email and it's a follow-up. And so what happens in this story is Matt responds and he says, "Thanks, Josh. We are a longtime HubSpot customer. And while not a proper MA solution, it works really well for us. Have a great quarter end. Best, Matt." So basically, Matt's saying that he thinks whatever Josh is selling directly competes against HubSpot and that they're not in any position to replace that anytime soon. So with the reframe strategy, Josh is going to come back with something interesting. Josh says, "Thanks for the response, Matt. If you are interested in taking a look at our solution, let me know. We're starting to see more and more companies using HubSpot for their inbound efforts and a true marketing automation tool for their outbound efforts." Josh. So rather than saying something like our solution is better than HubSpot, Josh is simply saying that if you're interested in checking out solution, you might be because other people in your space who are using HubSpot are using HubSpot in combination with our marketing tool. So he's spinning his product as something totally different from HubSpot and actually complementary. And this is very important because you don't want to directly compete against somebody, especially if they already got the business. You want to come in from a unique angle or a complementary angle. And so that's how you're going to handle competitor responses. All right, guys. So a lot of companies may not have the budget or resources to buy whatever you're trying to sell. So here we're going to show you how to overcome the lack of budget or resources. So the first thing you want to think about when you're overcoming a lack of budget or resources is knowing if your prospect does not have the resources to make a purchase is actually a good thing. And the reason is because you don't want to waste time trying to sell something to somebody who doesn't have any money. So in a lot of situations, if someone doesn't have money or it's not the best time for them, you might want to move on to your other deals and reach out to other prospects who are more ready to buy. Now, at the same time, they may not have money now, but in the future, there may be an opportunity. And so if you believe that's the case, and if the prospect is very critical and you would really want to keep in touch with them to potentially have a buying conversation with them in the future, here's what you're going to say. "Hey, John, great hearing from you. I appreciate your transparency and totally understand. Even if you currently don't have the resources, I'd still love to show you exactly how we can insert unique benefit so that you're aware of what's available when the timing's better. So if it still makes sense to talk, let me know what your calendar looks like. Thanks, Patrick. So in this situation, I'm acknowledging that he doesn't have the budget, and I'm basically rebuttaling him by saying that, hey man, look, I know that you don't have the budgets right now, but in the future, this may be something of interest to you. So how about we keep in touch? Or how about we have a conversation now so you know what's out there? And then when you're ready, you can make a purchasing decision. And so the thing with sales is not everybody's ready to buy the moment that you email them. Sometimes they would want to buy whatever you have, but it's just not the best timing. Maybe they have other priorities, or maybe they just don't have the budget at the moment. And so this is what you want to use to get that meeting, to start to build that relationship so that in the future you can reach out to them and then maybe have a business conversation. So that's what's going to be when it comes to overcoming the lack of budget or resources. All right, so let's say you email somebody and for whatever reason they're not interested or they say no. Here's how you're going to want to keep that prospect warm so that one day in the future you might have a business conversation with them. Okay, so here's what you're going to do to keep your prospects warm. If you like to keep the prospect as a warm lead, ask for permission to email them every now and then. So here's an example template that you could take some inspiration from. And this is when somebody says no to you or they say they're not interested. So let's go ahead and dive in. Hey, John, I totally understand. We're constantly finding new ways to help, and then insert your unique value in there. Is it okay if I periodically send you an email just to make sure you're in the know about important new ways to accomplish whatever you're trying to do? Thanks again for your transparency, Patrick. So in this section, you're acknowledging that the person is not interested, and you're basically saying that you want to still demonstrate value and show them that how you can help them in their business by sending them information that they may use or may not use. And so by asking for permission, they might just say, sure, and then that'll be the end of it. But every now and then you can send them an email, and one day they may actually want to take a meeting with you. So after the person responds and you gain their permission to to email them periodically, the first thing is, if it's a really critical client or potential client, you want to follow with them on the individual basis, making sure that every email you send is customized just for them. Now, for the people who aren't as important, but you do want to continue to email them and keep them as a warm lead, you can add them to a monthly email list that you could blast out, every single month, to all the people you want to keep top of mind with. So one strategy is on the individual basis. The other one is just putting them into an email list and emailing them all at the same time. Both is good, depends on what you're trying to do, and that's it. So let's go ahead and move forward with the next part. All right, so without a doubt, you're going to get this email quite a bit. And when you send someone an email, they're going to respond with, this isn't a priority right now. And then that's just another way to say they're not interested in a nice way. And so when this happens, here's what you're going to do to solve this issue. If they're saying this isn't a priority right now, so here's an example. Thanks, but we're not focused on marketing services right now. And they might just leave it at that. And so what you want to do is you want to counter with social proof or proven results and target a metric you feel they actually care about. And the reason is because if your product is actually good and can benefit them greatly, they're actually doing themselves a disfavor by not taking a meeting with you. Because if you can save them time and money and help them make more money, why wouldn't they want to take the meeting, right? So here's an example of what you're going to do. Okay, going into the response, let's go. Thanks for getting back to me, John. I really appreciate the candid response and totally agree with the importance of focus when there's so many things you could be doing for your business. Now, I wanted to point out that we just finished working with a client that resulted in a 23% increase in monthly revenue. If you're interested, I could send over a one-page case study. Interestingly enough, this wasn't a focus for them either when we first developed the working relationship. So in this section, what I'm basically saying is I'm acknowledging that it isn't a priority for them, but I wanted to point out that I'm working with a client who may be their competitor, and I was able to increase their monthly revenue by 23%. So in a subconscious way, I'm saying, hey, your competitor did this and increased their revenues quite a bit. why aren't you doing it? And so I want that fear of losing out emotion for them to be strong enough for them to want to take a meeting with me. I also offered the idea of sending a one pager. Usually I don't like to do that, but in this case, since they kind of responded with a no, maybe that one pager of the case study with that client's success story may convince them otherwise. And lastly, at the end, I said that when I was working with the first client, it wasn't a priority for them when we first started out, but now that we're working together, it helped them quite a bit. And so basically, I'm replaying the situation for this person and making them believe that, hey, it wasn't a priority for the other guy, but it worked, and it's going to be the exact same thing for you, so you should take my meeting. So that's pretty much what you want to do when people say it's not a priority right now. So go ahead and just follow this template step by step, and see you guys in the next one. Sometimes when you're emailing people, there's no explanation on why they are not interested. And to give you an example of that, sometimes a prospect might say, sorry, no thanks. So there's no context to if it's not the best timing or if they don't have the budget. It's just, you just don't know. So right now, if this happens, your goal is to figure out why they said what they said, why they said no, so you can make improvements to your email and get better at it. Because if you don't know why people don't respond, what can you do, or how will you know what to do to get better response rates? So here's an example when somebody gives you a no explanation response, and this is what you're going to say back to them to hopefully figure it out. So you say, thanks for getting back to me. Any particular reason why this isn't a good fit right now? The reason I ask is because 2 of our most successful clients felt the same way until we were able to educate them on the power of, then you insert your unique benefit. I'm happy to send over a 1-page case study on their results if you like. So in this case, you're acknowledging that they didn't really give you a response, and you're asking why that is. And then in the second sentence, you're basically, or the second paragraph, you're saying that other people felt the exact same way, but after reading these case studies, they've changed their minds. And so then at the end, you do the call to action and ask them if they want to see a case study to see what the results could look like for them. And so that's just one way you want to handle a situation where somebody doesn't give you a real response. And hopefully when they respond back, they'll tell you exactly why they're not interested, and then you can respond to that accordingly, and then you'll figure it out. And so that's just one way you can. So again, that's just one way you can deal with responses when people do not give an explanation.